Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Citrus Bites from our offices in Sevenoaks. So as always, there is a lot going on in the world. Economically, there's a lot going on, but I actually only get a couple of minutes. So today, I'm going to give you a quick whistle-stop tour of what's going on with the UK economy, why it's happening, and what do we think is going to happen next. So let's start with kind of the topics we tend to talk about whenever we have a look at Citrus Bites. We'll start with inflation. And I often talk about core CPI, so that's core inflation. Today, just talking about standard CPI, which includes the things I normally exclude in core, such as food and energy. So actually, the most recent number released on the 12-month rolling was up 3.5%. So CPI up 3.5% in the 12-month rolling to April, up from 2.6 in the previous number reported for the 12-month rolling to March. So obviously a fairly healthy uplift in inflation. And I guess it's easy to say, well, inflation seems to be a problem everywhere. There's lots and lots of speculation about what's going on with tariffs and trade conversations and what that's doing. But actually, I thought it was worth saying, well, yes, inflation is a challenge in a number of countries. But here's the thing against some of the G7 countries. So compare that to France, 0.9%. And you start to see actually the UK has ended up, particularly in the most recent reading, actually having quite a large spike compared to some others. And Germany came in at 2.27. So, UK inflation is standing out. And what's interesting for those that watched last month is I talked about the potential challenges facing the UK economy come April. So that many experienced this nasty hit of increase in water bills, increase in council tax bills, and of course, following the statement, we had the increase in employer NI all kicking in April, which is widely expected to have a really big impact on the economy. At which point, naturally spending potentially would slow, and so inflation would slow. Well, seemingly not, is the most recent data. What's become clear is the UK consumer loves to consume. No doubt the Bank of England was expecting this to slow off, given that the Bank of England base rate was changed. So that went down in May to 4.25. That's normally a sign the economy is slowing, and therefore putting base rates down, tries to stimulate a bit more spending, a bit more money in people's pockets. However, although the Bank of England base rate did go down in May, when you look back to April and you look at those kind of extra bills that came in, retail sales volumes actually peaked again in April. So having gone up in March, they went up again 1.2% month on month. Doesn't sound a lot. It's a big number on a single month. And compared to the previous 3 months, actually up by 1.8%. Now, the great thing is about retail sales volumes, whenever they come out, there's always a really good prediction about it was the weather, it was the timing of Easter, it was all of these different reasons. But the key thing here, of course, is, well, the weather has indeed been good. I think it's like the sunniest April on record since going back to some of the Met Office forecasting back to something like 1910 or 1912. So clearly the weather has been good, but nonetheless, in spite of all those challenges with extra bills coming in for UK consumers, retail sales volumes have gone up. So you sit there and go, well, how come this is still happening? In spite of all the doom and gloom that we tend to hear around the state of the economy, how come people are still spending more? And I'm just going to finish with a couple of things that I've been talking about, I think, for probably 18 months on Citrus Bites. So the first one being unemployment. Now, just looking at a graph for unemployment going all the way back, I think, to 1971, perhaps it contextualizes a little bit about how low relatively UK unemployment is today, running at about 4.5%, I think, for 16 and overs. Acknowledging some of the data is different and the number of people that have left the workplace, etc. But nonetheless, unemployment remains relatively low by historical standards. And I guess we're in a situation where what more power can go into a consumer's pocket than having a job and getting paid? And actually, above all else, is that one of the biggest drivers of why retail sales volumes still are going up. And the second thing I've talked about for such a long time is average weekly earnings. So this is the rate at which earnings are increasing. And to look at this graph, what we'll see is average weekly earnings are continuing to increase. So I think on a 12-month rolling basis, we're now looking at about 5.6% on the 12-month rolling. Again, compare that to inflation. So we talked about CPI has just gone up to 3.5 from 2.6. But the key thing here is not only is unemployment low, but those average weekly earnings are still going up by above inflation figure. So still putting more money in consumers' pockets in an environment where unemployment still remains low. So amongst all of the doom and gloom, I would point out slightly those average weekly earnings have come off ever so slightly compared to the previous 3-month rolling. So maybe we're just starting to see a slowdown in those average weekly earnings. But there we go. So amongst all of the doom and gloom we've heard about, in spite of all the new bills that have come in, actually the UK economy, based on people spending, still seems to be in relatively good health. And if I think back the last couple of years, actually we are now really sort of beginning to motor through the mortgage repricing. So I talked about the millions of people who are having to come off of previously cheaper fixed rate mortgages, going on to the newer fixed rate mortgages that are available, which are clearly kind of for many more expensive. But that strength of spending has continued. So now all of that comes together with a what happens next. Well, the what happens next is that big challenge for the Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee that sit again to decide, having made 2 base rate reductions so far in 2025, one in February and one in May, looking at all of the strength actually of some of this economic data now, what are they going to do in June? So the next announcement is going to be on the 19th of June. I would say right now this has got to be in the balance leading up to the retail sales volumes announcements. Actually, it was mainly forecasting a potential drop. I wonder, maybe we're not so sure anymore. Maybe this has given some really interesting food for thought for the Monetary Policy Committee over what to do with the bank base rate moving forward. So look, that's it for today. I'll come back to you after we've got the announcement over the next bank base rate decision on the 19th of June, and I'll provide you the latest economic indicators at that time. Thanks ever so much for watching. That's it for today. Bye for now. Take care.